Lewis Hamilton has just been hit with a severe penalty from the International Automobile Federation, a sanction that could seriously jeopardize his entire weekend at the Grand Prix held on the streets of Monte Carlo. The reason? A simple communication failure turned into a complete incident directly involving Max Verstappen. The development took both the public and the Italian team by surprise, as Hamilton will drop 3 places on the starting grid after the sport's governing body released new images and data revealing exactly when the issue occurred during qualifying. This could drastically affect the outcome of Sunday's race. This is not just a simple misjudgment, but rather a sequence of events that began with incorrect information transmitted by Hamilton's race engineer. He informed the British driver that Verstappen was slowing down, when in fact the Austrian team's driver was on a flying lap. As Hamilton returned to the racing line at the Masset corner, Verstappen was forced to lift off the throttle abruptly, completely compromising his lap and voicing his frustration over the radio. The governing body spent hours reviewing the data, listening to both drivers before deciding to apply the penalty. As a result, Hamilton's entire effort in qualifying was compromised. The impact of this goes far beyond an isolated incident. What happened directly interferes with the Italian team's planning for the Monte Carlo race, as overtaking on this circuit is nearly impossible, and grid position dictates much of the final performance. Dropping down the order could mean the difference between fighting for a podium and merely trying to limit the damage. In this video, you will understand what led to the Federation's decision, the role of the new evidence presented, and why there is so much frustration within the Red Team. And if you're new here, consider showing your support by subscribing and staying with us until the end, because what happened this weekend could very well be a turning point in the 2025 season. The situation involving Hamilton goes far beyond the penalty itself. For him, it is a clear reminder of how a promising weekend can collapse within minutes, especially when there are breakdowns in communication between driver and team. What is most concerning is what this reveals about the team's internal structure. Hamilton himself showed no desire to point fingers, but according to behind-the-scenes reports, his demeanor reflected dissatisfaction. His statements during the hearing were balanced, yet tinged with resignation. He declared that he had received information indicating Verstappen was running slowly, and that was why he returned to the racing line. He also stated that if he had known the rival was on a fast lap, he would never have positioned himself that way. It was the attitude of a veteran who understands that, regardless of the circumstances, the responsibility always falls on the one behind the wheel. Even so, the atmosphere inside the Italian team was visibly shaken. Engineer Riccardo Adami, who currently works with Hamilton after previously supporting Carlos Sainz, was identified as the one who provided the incorrect information. According to data submitted to the Federation, the failure lasted only a few seconds, but it was enough to trigger the confusion. The impact was immense. Team principal Frédéric Vasseur tried to contain the damage in interviews, acknowledging that the communication with Hamilton came at the worst possible moment, and that despite the frustration, the team needed to accept the sanction and move on. However, the media did not ease up. After all, this marks the third major strategic mistake in less than 60 days. First came the pit stop confusion during the race in Imola. Then, the tire selection error in Miami. Now, a radio failure right in Monte Carlo. Within the team itself, questions began to emerge. Has Hamilton's arrival disrupted internal roles among the engineers? Is the team struggling to manage 2 experienced drivers with different communication styles? What is increasingly clear is that this is not an isolated episode, but a recurring pattern of errors in critical moments. And in motorsport, where the tiniest of details separate victory from defeat, these mistakes can be fatal. From Verstappen's side, patience was short. As soon as he stepped out of the car, his radio message was full of indignation. He shouted, questioning what Hamilton was doing on the racing line. In later interviews, he did not hold back. He stated that he had to lift off because Hamilton was in the middle of the track and that such mistakes were unacceptable on a circuit like Monte Carlo, where every lap carries tremendous weight. Even though he will start from the second row, Verstappen knows he could have secured pole position if not for the interference. Had the Federation not intervened, the damage could have been even worse. The truth is that this mishap also disrupted the narrative Ferrari had built for the weekend. Just one day earlier, the mood was optimistic. Charles Leclerc had topped the timing charts in the initial practice sessions, and the car seemed well suited to the narrow layout of Monte Carlo. Hopes were high in Maranello for a strong result. However, the penalty imposed on Hamilton and the resulting internal fallout now threatened to unravel all that optimism. From a strategic standpoint, the consequences are profound. With Hamilton starting from the 7th position, the entire game plan needs to be reconsidered. The original idea was to have him in the second row, ready to challenge the front runners into the first corners. Now, the team will need to take risks, consider early pit stops, attempt an undercut, or rely on a tire strategy built entirely around the potential deployment of the safety car. And in Monte Carlo, where keeping track position is everything, this will not be easy. For Leclerc, this shift could be both an advantage and a challenge. On one hand, he now has more breathing room, with his teammate further down the order. This allows the team to tailor its strategy entirely around the Monegasque driver. However, it also raises questions about the internal politics of the team. Will Hamilton be willing to be sacrificed for Leclerc, especially after a team error cost him so much? Let's not forget that this is no ordinary race. This is the Monaco Grand Prix, the crown jewel of Formula One. And it was supposed to be a moment of redemption for Hamilton, who has yet to stand on the main podium this season. His strong performance in Imola reignited hopes in Maranello. But all that momentum has been crushed by a wave of confusion, frustration, and now, a penalty. The grid shakeup also opens doors for others. Verstappen moves up, McLaren has more flexibility to execute its plan, and even the German team, which had been flying under the radar, could benefit if chaos erupts in the opening laps. A single radio failure at Ferrari did not just impact Hamilton's race. It may have shifted the entire strategic landscape of the Monaco Grand Prix. And what about the fans? As usual, social media is ablaze with heated debates over whether the penalty was fair. Some argue Hamilton was the victim of poor information. Others claim the rules are clear and that if Verstappen's lap was hindered, the sanction was inevitable. But there's one point on which nearly everyone agrees. Once again, Ferrari stumbled under pressure. And as for Hamilton, all eyes will be on him when the lights go out and the engines roar to life.